Welcome to the Artificial Intelligence Podcast with your host, Dr. Tony Huang. Today's episode is sponsored by Symphony AI, and we're here with the CTO, Raj. Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Tony. My name is Raj Shukla. I am the CTO here at Symphony AI. At Symphony AI, we are an enterprise AI company. We automate complex operational workflows in specific industries we operate in. We take a very vertical AI approach to it. We operate in retail, financial services, industrial manufacturing, and enterprise IT. And really, we can do this vertical approach because our AI is pre-trained on each industry's ontologies, knowledge graphs, and workflows. And it comes with pre-built agents, it comes with pre-built reasoning models, and pre-built predictive models. And our platforms, vertical platforms, utilize the best of each of these to solve end-to-end problems in these domains.
What's one thing in like your production AI playbook that most companies overlook?
I think Symphony AI's playbook is all about getting to ROI fast. And the way we do it is not magic as such. We just work in very specific domains, which we have nailed in terms of what it takes to get it right, right? We expect the data to be in a common data model. We actually have an agent that assists taking your data in a different format and feeding into a known data model. We build domain-specific knowledge graphs around it, which build all the necessary context that has to be given to an agent. And all those tools, like our domain knowledge graphs, are provided as MCP servers to the agents, for example. So this whole recipe is pre-developed for the domains we are in. Now, what can vary here is your data could be in a different format to start with. Your APIs could be different, and so they will have to be registered. But the interfaces for every interface we have built a sort of an abstraction for it. And so because we start like that, with that kind of a problem statement, uh, the expectation of what you need to bring in, how AI assists you in the process, and as importantly, what KPIs you get as an output, they are well understood. And the process of like kind of mapping your input data to what's expected, and then mapping your KPIs or actions to, you know, as integrations in your system is what effectively remains on one side on the left as input and on one side on the left as output. And you have knobs and edges you play around in the middle, but sort of the playbook is ready in some sense. And that's really our play because we think there is so many problems in these domains, in these verticals, which are very, very well understood. And the playbook for that doesn't have to be repeated.
What's the biggest misconception that companies have when they first attempt to deploy AI at scale?
I think the biggest misconception kind of remains the same. It's been about 3 years since ChatGPT came. I think the most obvious way to use AI is synonymous with LLMs or large language models. And large language models, the way to get things out of them is to prompt them. And so the biggest misconception is that just throw everything in there and AI will do it for you, right? And that sort of misconception has grown as agents have come along because you no longer expect AI to say an answer back to you or give you an answer. You just expect it to do things. And so sometimes you throw in a bunch of information into you. Why isn't it doing what I expect it to do? And so just knowing how to go about that in a structured way is the hard part. And in some sense, I think we are overestimating what LLMs can do in the shorter time period, and we are underestimating what they'll be able to do in 10 years from now. So I think it needs a little bit of structure right now. It needs a thoughtful approach to give it the right tools, to give it the right orchestration, etc. But without it, more or less in real enterprise scenarios, we see a lot of failures.
So we hear a lot about the word model race. Why does focusing on having the best language model right now actually hurt enterprises?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there is a reason to use the best model out there. As intelligence sort of becomes a commodity, the best model, roughly the best model out there will win, right? The question is, how do you say if something is good for the scenarios you operate on? And that's a hard question to answer because you better have, as a company or as an industry, you should have a lot of good benchmarks or eval sets to be able to say which model is better or the other. But I think that assumption or that sort of uh, fixation with the best model uh, stops you from doing all the foundational stuff or the basic stuff you have to do on your APIs, on your data sets to make your data AI ready, to make your APIs AI ready, to make your general context of your industry, your problem AI ready. And you just assume that the model will figure it all out. And I think the better way to approach it in our mind, obviously, is that yes, let the models improve on their own, but do the groundwork that needs to be done to pass the right context to the model just as much.
And what patterns do you see in companies right now that successfully scaled AI versus those that are stuck in like pilot purgatory?
I think the most clear pattern we see is companies which understood what the problem was and where they needed to apply AI versus those who went the other way around, which is there's a lot of LLMs are very good at a number of tasks. They are a generalized, like good model. And so sometimes you start with a great solution and you go around looking for the problem. And that usually results in a lot of failures versus the companies which have a problem, have had it maybe for years, if not decades, understand the data that is needed for the problem, understand the APIs, the context, the structure around that problem. It's just that the things haven't come together well to solve it. And I think once you have that, the LLMs and especially agentic AI or agentic AI patterns, sort of LLMs running in a loop with all that context, with all that structure works really well. So I would say that's roughly it's a really simple thing, but it's that's what I see as the clearest pattern.
So right now, everyone's talking about this hot new thing called AI agents. What's
Right.
actually working in production versus what's still experimental?
Uh, I think we as an AI industry did no justice in calling everything an agent. Even a one single prompt sent to an LLM packaged as an API was called an agent. And real autonomous, agents like, coding agents, deep research agents were also called agents. And everything in the middle of that was called agents as well. So as an industry, I think in a typical sort of hype cycle, we did not do it justice. But really, the places we see, processes that are automated with LLMs are ones where uh, the steps were clear that needed to be done. The steps were that needed to be done were could be measured, whether each of those steps was done correctly or not. And really, you could stitch the flow together. Right? I think that's really it. Versus if you truly were not able to, the problem was complex. You could not break it down into steps. You did not build benchmarks or evaluations for each of those. and those were hard. And I'm just talking about the real enterprise scenarios. Of course, in coming outside of it, agents have done very well in the coding domain, AI coding domain, in the deep research domain, but it's kind of you could count only a few successful product market fits that those kinds of agents have. In the real enterprise scenarios, uh, understanding the processes well, and understanding of processes had nothing to do with agents, right? Like, being in a particular industry, being in a particular domain, the processes were well known. The steps within the processes were well known. The definition of success or failure for each of those processes was well known. If you applied agent in that context, I'm seeing more successes, generally speaking.
Now, when people deploy AI products, they get sticker shock. So what's like the hidden cost of AI implementations that CFOs aren't expecting?
Um, I think uh, I think in general, if you look at it, the industry learned very quickly that the cost of LLM inference would drop, and they were right about it. It drops orders of magnitude, thousand, if not 10,000 times since the first LLMs have come along, and it continues to drop. So sometimes people do their budgets assuming the LLM calls, the cost will drop. But in reals, especially in workflow and process automation scenarios where the AI agents are getting deployed, uh, the underestimated cost is the cost it takes to make your data AI ready and to change your APIs to be AI ready, right? So to go from a open API schema or an API set that you have to a very well functioning MCP server is a unknown cost in some sense. The CTOs cannot, or like CIOs cannot guess that, CFOs cannot guess that. And for real implementations to complete, it's not really just the LLMs that people were worried about. It's the making your data AI ready, making your APIs AI ready, that they underestimated. And those costs started bloating up, whether it was a platform restructuring kind of a cost, or was it people employed to change your APIs to be that way? And I think that's what we see, and we take a different approach to it because we approach the problems in our domains, and our platforms know the structure of the data. We bring the context, we bring the domain knowledge graphs in these. Our MCP servers, yes, we've had to learn it as well, but they are standard now. So as long as the data gets mapped to the way we start the problem, our end-to-end process automation that you achieve with our vertical platforms that Symphony AI has is far bigger than what you're getting if you're starting that process yourself.
And in your opinion, what's like one capability that enterprises overestimate? And like where should they redirect that energy?
One capability that they overestimate or underestimate?
Overestimate.
Uh, I think they overestimate the amount of autonomy that they'll be able to get in a short amount of time. It's like it's kind of like self-driving cars, right? Like you kind of overestimate what they'll be able to do. If and even if you have a self-driving car on a highway, you think you'll be able to do on internal roads as it's perfectly. I think it's a similar analogy right now, uh, where in real, a lot of CIOs, a lot of CFOs worry about productivity, right? Real productivity comes from not just step automations, it comes from workflow automations and sort of process automations. So, where not just do you have to automate each individual workflows, but a process is involved or five or six workflows. And it has to pass the baton from one workflow to another. And if it fails, it has to redo things. And I think that you start of imagining I can do it with an LLM, then you say I need agents, then you say I need 7 agents, and then you say I need these 7 agents to be talking to each other. So that complexity keeps kind of growing.
And what's like the hardest like, data problem that enterprises underestimate? Like how does that impact like the model quality, the agents like reliability, and then just the real outcomes?
Uh, I think the biggest thing I think I see underestimated is the sort of time it takes to go from demo to production, right? And so I think we have so many good AI tools available to develop prototypes now. Uh, you think of the Lovables and Replets of the world. In Symphony AI, we have a product called Forge, for example. But really, the producing any application going 0 to 1 is the easy part. Getting it to work with your data in a consistent, reliable manner with the right authentication and authorization that your humans are expected to do. It's that last mile which is hard. And I think the industry is waking up to that to a large extent. But I see still a lot of decisions driven in build versus buy with that kind of you know prototype or demos in mind. And so I maybe naturally we will reach some kind of balance that in our CXO conversations we are already seeing it. We've had to change our conversations to say, okay, please try it, and then we've had to change our platform strategy as well to say you don't have to do things exactly the way we want. It's okay to start things off the way you want, but we'll take you the last mile with the platform approach that we have in our verticals. So I think it's both from a vendor and an end customer perspective. We are learning things, and I think naturally the industry will meet at the middle. We believe we are more ready in that sense, but definitely I think the end customers, everyone, kind of underestimates how much it takes to do that last mile.
When you're moving from the POC or proof of concept stage to production, what breaks that nobody warns you about?
What breaks that nobody warns you about? Uh, I think I would name a few things. Of course, the governance is one that gets hard because at the POC stage, typically, if you're building an agent, for example, you give it the highest privileges, right? Your agent runs with admin privileges, and when you are deploying it in production, you realize, oh no, hold on, this agent has to operate in the context of the user who's using that agent, and that user does not have access to that sensitive information or that private data. So the sort of POC dimensions are usually described as functional success, whereas production success is defined not just as functional success, but as other things like privacy, security, governance as well, right? I think that's the clearest place where it breaks. The second thing I would say is it POCs are run with samples of data. And in production, you kind of, as soon as you get rid of the samples and you get to real scale, things have to be evolved dramatically. And just to give you and this is not just with agents. This was true with machine learning models as well. Like you would build models, assuming your data would be of 100 MB, and in reality, the data behind was a terabyte. And you suddenly realize that my first step where my data gathering was running cannot run on Python pandas, or it has to run on Spark or a GPU accelerated data frame or something. And I think just that I would call that scalability in terms of data size. And then the second form of scalability would be in terms of usage, which is a different form. So one very clear example of agents, something that Symphony AI as a company, our technical teams did a very careful choice of, is how long will your agents run? So remember, we came from Copilot's days where it was more like a chatbot. And now we have come to AI agents where these agent runs for hours and sometimes they run for days because in the middle there is a human in the loop. You ask a question to a customer, which is through an email sent to them. And then you have to wait for 7 days or 3 days or whatever when they respond to it. So this aspect of long running versus short running takes many POC architectures for a toss. And so unless your production architecture is built around these forms of scalability and the different sort of angles of scalability, they fail.
And with like open source models such as like Meta's Llama or Alibaba's Gwen,
Yeah,
they're getting really, really good.
really good.
Where should enterprises actually focus their investments?
Uh, I think clearly there are domains in which model sovereignty or data sovereignty is kind of important. Uh, and that's where if you have open weights models or fully open source models, that makes a lot of sense. We operate in the financial services domain with our, Sensa risk intelligence platform. We see a lot of banks asking us to deploy with, on-prem with models like these open source models. So we are big fans of these open source models. I would say the going back to what I said earlier, uh, the way we look at it is if you start with open source models, uh, there's a lot of time that goes into figuring out how to fine tune them, how to deploy them, and it's a very expensive, costly. There's a whole lot of vendor companies just doing that. If the goal is to achieve true process automation through agents, making sure your data is AI ready, making sure your APIs are AI ready, making sure uh, your MCP servers or your agent to agent orchestration layers are right. Um, I think it's important to get those things right first. Um, have them working with good models so that you know what working good looks like. And then you can try to replace each parts of those. So let's say there is a step that does tool calling to make a decision and to call the right APIs. Then you know that I can get this step about 95% accurate with a GPT-5. So now you know that if I use a Quen fine-tuned model for that step, you know the benchmark, you know how to achieve it. And I think that would be our recommendation overall.
So, in your opinion, what role does like the unsexy infrastructure play versus cutting edge models in like determining success for an enterprise?
Uh, I think they're both equally important. The models are getting really good. They they play a very important role in, especially when we run them as agents. You know, behind agents when we run them, uh, they they have become really good at sort of when they make mistakes, they improve. And I think that that bit of self-reflection loop, if you call it, is really powerful. And I think that those are important. But the infrastructure, whether you call it the infrastructure layer or the plumbing layers around them, that connects those models to enterprise data, whether it's in databases, data warehouses, or behind APIs. I think a lot of those interfaces uh, have had to be recreated or redone to be ready for these LLMs. Because if you think about it, the way the world runs today, the APIs were built for service contracts and like sort of UI level contracts to serve front end applications, and LLMs are just built different, right? They are not rigid service contracts. They are LLMs expect uh, flexible tools, something that they can query and it gives back a understandable error message, something that they can look back. Like, so for example, for us in our verticals, we always focus on our vertical specific domain knowledge graph. So it can understand the domain, and if it's not getting one piece of information from one tool, it will go ask it from another tool, etc. And we give it that whole structure. And I think that bit, if you call that infrastructure, I call that tooling overall, is very critical. So both those things I think are very important. One without the other just fails.
And then, in your opinion, what are like non-negotiable elements before someone attempts to like scale AI across an enterprise?
Uh, uh, get your data AI ready if you want real automation. If you just are doing sort of demos and POCs, you can have snippets of that data or samples of that data. If you're not, then you have to get your data AI ready. Get your tools and APIs AI ready. Uh, be ready to give the context around how your data and your APIs are related. Just overall giving a very domain specific context to the LLM involves all these things. I think those are critical in getting it right. And the second thing I would say is on the usage side, just authentication, authorization, and ensuring at the different layers that your agent runs in the with the same privileges that an end user is expected to run, and that it's not using just admin privileges across all the data and APIs that you've connected.
So you're in the fintech space. Can you tell us like what real success looks like when you're scaling from a couple thousand to like millions of transactions?
Absolutely. So we have a flagship platform, fintech platform, a fin crime platform called Sensor Risk Intelligence. Uh, and we operate in sort of the risk and compliance space. We uh, offer solutions for anti-money laundering, sanctions screening, all aspects of name screening, transaction screening, etc. So if you imagine the scale, we would look at uh, at our largest customers, which are some of the largest banks in the world, like 300 million names screened in a day across so 300 million of the customers screened against a list that is a million in size in another. So it's a huge join, if you will, across 300 million cross million kind of scale. If you look at transactions, they are in the order of billions sometimes in a day. Uh, and that's what scale looks like, right? And this is what kind of dictates that you cannot throw really every transaction at an LLM, for example, right? Even if you choose the smallest small language models running through billions of transactions a day would run your cost through the roof. In our platforms, we build the right uh, detection strategies, detection models. Many of those detection models are predictive in nature, right? They run as a probabilistic model. They run as a deep neural network, which is still a very good model, just not an LLM. Uh, and it runs across all those transactions and it produces numbers. And then LLMs come somewhere in the funnel, right? Let's say you detect 1,000 possible, you run across a billion transactions, you detect 1,000 of them could be fraudulence. Now LLMs play a role, just given the scale and size and cost of it. So I think that's why the understanding the definition of the problem, understanding the funnel or the scale at which you operate, and choosing the right models, and not just throw everything at an LLM is very important in all these domains.
And how does like practical real world AI governance look like when there's like thousands of automated decisions are happening every minute?
Yeah, I think AI governance has a life cycle of its own, right? So there is, when you come up with an end-to-end working complex AI system, uh, it has different parts to it. It has LLMs, it has predictive models, as I said, it has agents that work across predictive models, APIs, and processes, and so on. And then if you're trying to build an agent, there is a life cycle around it. There is a agent builder stage at which you're trying to build. There is a deploy stage, and then there is a monitor stage, right? And you kind of need governance at all these stages. And the definition of governance, at least that's how we look at it. So at the builder stage itself, as I said, you want to build the agent with the right privileges. That you don't want to give like admin privileges, etc. At the deployment stage, you want to make sure it's deployed in the right environments. It has access to the right APIs. It can scale to the right amount of usage that it can. It has the right amount of compute given that you can run it. Post deployment, you have to continuously monitor it. And as you said, you probably cannot monitor it for everything. You probably monitor it for a sample, right? But continuous monitoring looks like producing very clear evaluation metrics, how the agent is behaving over time. You take 1,000 samples a day. You either use a good LLM as a first level judge, and that's what we do, right? We use LLM as a judge for our first cut, and then for wherever the LLM flags things as an unknown, we actually use humans. And so at the end, there is a human which is involved in seeing is this agent behaving well over time. But you can see that the governance was described not just post deployment. We started that effort at the time of the building itself, during deployment, and then post deployment. Yeah.
So like how do you see like the balance between like general purpose and like industry specific AI like evolving?
Uh, I think industry our view is very clear in that we think industry specific AI or vertical AI is where the fastest ROI from good AI models, good LLMs comes from. When we speak of AGI or artificial general intelligence or super intelligence, um, who knows how long it will take for us to achieve there. But vertical AI gives us the right uh, lever in the meantime because the context is known, because the problems are understood, because the test cases are known, etc. It gives our current state AI models the right foundation to work well on. It's neither too simple a problem where AI is not even needed, nor it is too generic or too high a problem that you have to wait for AGI. We feel like it's the right balance. And if you think about many things are not industry specific, like you searching your Outlook email for something as a search is not it's like a horizontal problem, but there are many things that each industry, each vertical has that is not specific to just that company. All their competitors, all their similar companies have exactly the same definition of the problem. And I think kind of abstracting that problem into a template that can be worked with LLMs and agents is the right middle ground to utilize the maximum out of AI.
And like which like traditional industry right now, in your opinion, is like sitting on a gold mine of AI opportunities that they just don't, realize it yet?
I don't know whether they realize it or not, but our favorite is our industrial manufacturing domain. In some sense, the problem of getting the data captured, ingested, structured, visualized itself is hard enough in that problem that that industry has been lagging in terms of applying. Like in, if you look at the evolution of AI from small models to predictive AI models to some prescriptive AI and now generative AI. I think industrial just could not follow most of those generations of AI because just getting the data right was hard. Which is why we as Symphony AI also offer, our vertical platform is called Iris Foundry, which is first of all, it is a data ops platform. It makes your data, it gets your data, it gives it knowledge and structure and makes your data AI ready, right? That's its primary purpose. But now that it skipped those predictive AI and on, it can actually maybe skip a generation, and it could go agentic AI altogether, right? And it feels like there is so much data sitting on factory floors. There is so much sensor data in boilers and factory floors and machines, and there is a lot of unstructured data sitting as manuals. Sometimes, like we go to our customers, sometimes all they have is paper, and literally the first you have to digitize it, then you have to do a good OCR like AI model on it, then it lands in a vector DB, right? There is a whole lot of just data prep going in there. But once you do that, I think agents have become very good, and so the entire industry is ripe for disruption and just skipping a few generations of AI straight to automation.
And then like what AI capabilities are coming up in the next 12 months that you think will change how like enterprises think about implementation?
Um, I'm very excited about a couple of areas. One we believe is any domain we work in where the outcome is verifiable, meaning there is a very clear yes or no answer, right? Like in a math problem, you know exactly what the answer is. In a lot of the spaces we work in, we know exactly what the outcome was. And it's literally right like a number, or it's literally like an outcome that says whether this was fraud or not, like a human judged it in the end. In all those domains, uh, we should be able to build fine-tuned large language models which really automate the problem, right? With the process of reinforcement learning with verifiable outputs, I think those problems are ripe for that. And so this, some people call it small reasoning models, etc. I think that's one area. The second area I would say is which is very interesting, is today we look at, with language models, we look at things as text. And but you with the new models, I think DeepSeek has an OCR model. I think the latest Gemini 3 also has some very good multimodal capabilities. The same document that you give, instead of giving it as text, you give it as an image. And these multimodal capabilities that give the same piece of information but encoded as pixels in an image versus as text, which is what we are used to today. They have started giving very similar results, and that appeals to kind of efficiency that you can get out of the models. We all know, we think these LLMs are not very efficient, but maybe that multimodal or image concept just makes it that, and that'll change a lot of things, right? We'll think of treating inputs as images more and more, and as multimodal context, which will be quite groundbreaking.
And before we get to our last question, for the viewers that listening at home who want to learn more from Raj, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
Uh, you can reach me on email. My first name, that last name at symphonyai.com. you know, uh, happy to interact. It's definitely if you are someone operating in the industries that we are in financial services, retail, CPG, industrial manufacturing, and if you're interested, like we deal with a lot of customers, we see a lot of problems in this space. It is always exciting to see the commonalities of the problem space, how AI is advancing, different processes, different steps here, and just, build common knowledge around it. Whoever solves it, I think as an industry, it's good to take these sort of often forgotten domains that we operate in, up together in the age of AI.
And then last question, what separates companies that will thrive with AI from those who will struggle using it?
Uh, that's a very interesting question. I think the companies which realize which th companies that think of AI as a mandate, passed on from the bosses down, just for the sake of it, that's not the way to succeed, right? I think uh, the companies which realize that AI is fundamentally changing, everything we operate in, right? If we say that LLMs are like the new operating systems on which we build our apps and so on, I think if the companies which think of modeling their internal processes themselves or automating them and thinking of LLMs and AI models, and the right AI models as uh, the operating system and tool sets around it. And maybe thinking that, uh, you know, those who are willing to go the extra mile to say, uh, okay, whatever we built in the last 10, 20, however many years, might have to be modified to work with foundation models or to work with agents as the actors versus humans. I think that's the core thing that you have to accept, right? And you don't have to have all the knowledge around doing it yourself, but you just have to accept it that someone will help you in that. But be willing to say that I have to look at my data estate and see if my data is AI ready. I have to look at my API estate and see if my APIs will be AI ready. Am I ready for a world where it'll not be humans looking at my website and seeking information, but it'll be agents looking at my website and seeking information. Just imagining that world and being ready to do that, I think those companies will succeed, uh, while others will realize later on that they missed the boat.
Well, thanks, Raj, for being on the show. And for the viewers listening at home, stay curious.
Thank you, Tony.